Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. You are joining Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra's regular Sunday guided calm abiding meditation, followed by a talk on the theme of Buddhist insights, causes of sanity. So all of you, welcome. If you can, join me with the meditation. That is the first thing we're going to do, because you can't talk about calm abiding. You have to do calm abiding meditation, silent sitting meditation, by fixing your attention one pointedly on one object, and then try to observe the stillness of being calm and aware, and very consciously fix your attention on the object of meditation. But before we do that, we will first do a short prayer that is affirmation of a person like myself doing as a practitioner who is trying to renew one's confidence and faith in the practice of the Buddha Dharma, and how important it is to turn to the Dharma and not to anything other than that, so that you can maximize the great benefit, the great benefit that will accrue in guiding, giving ourselves the what you call benefit of having such inner guide, so that we are wakefully engaging our time and what we do and say and think and feel, perceive, all of these metacognitively, so that we are responsible in terms of choosing our way around. So those who have found that conviction in following the teachings of the Buddha, the scripture teachings of Buddha is a guide for oneself to gain this inner realization. It's not a guide as an external God or guardian who tells you what to do and you think someone up there tells you what to do. Not that kind of a airy-fairy kind of idea. Buddhism has to be testable by your own personal conviction and through examination and experiences. Not that we are always that wise to do that, but we need to compare our own notes again and again. So that is, the Buddha Dharma is one's own conscience and one's own self-helpfulness, one's own ability to respect the Buddha, remember his instructions and teachings, and the great effort that he made to make this valid contribution. So to represent that, starting the refuge prayer is kind of a warm up of the engine of your practice. And also reminding the commitment in practicing that is to drive safely, not only start the engine, but drive safely by making the renewal of the commitment to practice loving kindness and compassion with all people, particularly very difficult ones, no matter how wrong they may appear to our waxed eye. If we practice kindness to them, it will greatly lift the problem, and you will empower yourself to remove their sufferings and problems at your goodness and your ability to allay those. So therefore, compassion is a thing you do. It's not kind of some kind of magical kind of divine hand intervene you and removes all your problems. No, like our own mental constitution becomes checked. Instead of keeping the ill will and resentment, it gives the goodwill and gratitude, and then you can practice compassion to yourself, your past, your other people. And when you are able to do that, you have a lot of joy in everyday life. You really, without, it's not with the, not that you have not that you have bad people in your life that you but difficult people though might be, but you have a kind of mental constitution that doesn't worsen it, but make use of those difficulties to tackle your own inner kind of mental constitution that is adding to the problem. This kind of practice gives you amazing joy of conquest of the demon within ourselves. That is joy, not joy or happiness from defeating other people and getting a trophy, that kind of temporary worldly kind of gain and loss game people play. Not that. That is not a victory. You know how those victories are very, 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 very transient and illusory. The suppressing of your own ego and selfishness, and that is a true victory. We call four destroyers. Yeah. So the one who has joy, lack of enmity, is a real gift of meditation. And that's why we do the meditation, just to spot those lurking enmities and ill wills and wrong views of other people and so on. If you have that, then you actually you handle to deal with that. So so that's with that. Even if you do that, that doesn't mean that all the difficulties and people in your life disappear. They still will be there, to whom you need to practice equanimity. So that's why we're going to do the prayers to start with. Oh, in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, I did a vision, I did by virtue, I shall Buddha and the Buddha Dharma Sangha, I did a vision, I did by virtue, I shall Buddha and the Buddha Dharma Sangha, I did a vision, I did by virtue, I shall Buddha happiness and the cause of happiness may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering may they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering, may they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. Beings, happiness and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering may they never from the happiness that knows no suffering, may they dwell Chödosne Ampha Meobis happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never from the happiness that the suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those never. Now we do the meditation. We'll do the meditation of one pointed calm abiding meditation in 3 slots of 10 minutes. So first we'll focus to keep our posture as the focus of our attention. Observe the stillness of the whole posture, the gaze of the eyes, not blinking, back straight, shoulders balanced, hands on the lap, jaw relaxed. Have a sense of single hair pulling you towards the ceiling. In this way, maintain the stillness of the posture, the gaze of the eyes, the attention and awareness to keep all. Scan the posture up and down dutifully, about 2 to 3 minutes or 6 or 7 rounds, and then take a conscious mini break. So in this way, the next 10 minutes, you sit still, mindfully guarding the posture, taking useful breaks when necessary, otherwise not slackening or not drifting away or forgetting to stay engaged in the posture, the attention, the gaze, and the awareness, harmonizing all the 4 elements. So during the second 10 minutes, we will now maintain the posture, of course, but fix our attention mindfully, one pointedly, to the qualified round breath that is inhaling, doing, knowingly inhale, see the white light of oxygen, feel inspired. As you permeate the breath in the bloodstreams, do the permeation, see it reddens the color in the blood and it floods your whole body, and you can feel rejuvenation of whole body and mind. And then as you exhale, breathe out consciously, not just the carbon, but sadness, hurt, pain, tiredness, or any worrisome thoughts. Expel with the breath and feel relieved. So with that, watch one round, and next round, and third and fourth. Try to do at least reasonable number of times. That is not too much. But then take a conscious mini break after that round's done. And then again repeat the same bout again and again, taking the mini breaks after a good bout of effort, so that you are mindfully, calmly focusing in keeping your one point attention on the qualified round of breath that are carefully timed, guided awareness, without any dullness, forgetfulness, or laziness, or boredom, or distraction. Simply consciously relish this mindfulness of qualified round breathing. For the last 10 minutes, we're going to focus on doing focus, forward counting of qualified rounds of breath, as many rounds as possible. Each round at the end of exhalation, you count 1 and the 2 and 3. Making sure the contents of each qualified round's breath are not compromised, even you're counting without losing the count. Unless you lose the count, keep building the number as high as you can. And once you're able to reach that point, then take a mini break. And then second time, you do the reverse counting of qualified round of breathing. The end of each exhalation, you can say 50, and then 49, 48, and so on, with very good concentration, unimpeded by dullness or forgetfulness or distraction or dullness. So that's the meditation. Thank you for anyone who is joining us. I'm not sure today how this Facebook Live is working. I knew that there's some problem with Facebook this week from many reasons, because the government is going through difficulty with Facebook. I hear that we couldn't quite upload this morning, so we. If it isn't going to be witnessable on Facebook, it will be uploaded on YouTube later on. So for those of you who are able to, also we weren't able to inform people that this morning it will be on Zoom, but here we have a couple of our very loyal participants all the way from Harvey Bay, Peter, and Sunshine Coast, Paul. Thank you very much. Yes, it is on YouTube now, so it is on YouTube. But of course, people, I don't think people can make comments on YouTube or ask questions. If there is, I can't see them. So never mind. Of course. If anyone on Zoom wanted to put a question, please type it in the chat box, and I'll be able to see. I'll be able to address them But in the meantime, thank you, everyone. I'm going to address the very topic, Buddhist insight as a cause of sanity, which is a very broad topic. I've been doing this talk for a while. But today I thought of talking about the role of the various, Buddhist schools and traditions, and how we should treat them with good sanity and respect rather than with contempt, because the others looks like others. So when you look at the Buddhist history, early as only say a couple of hundred years after Buddha passed away, the Buddhism itself was broken up into 18 Nikaya schools, largely not so much of the philosophical difference, but the do's and don'ts concerning the monks' vows. There were quite a lot of people interpreted literally, and they were wanting to be very rigid by the books, while others had a different take on the various methods of how they practice the Vinaya. So most of the 18 Nikaya schools had some kind of a different preference in terms of how they should adapt to the Vinaya according to place and the time and the weather and so on. So you can see those different sort of take are not a doctrinal assertion, but nevertheless about the conduct of the monks, whether they should have a relaxation of some of the strict vows, or whether they should be as strict as those who observe during the rainy season retreat. All that kind of thing made Buddhism itself split into 18 monastic schools, I would say, Nikaya schools. And later on, those 18 Nikaya schools was kind of have become the source of the various schools and Vinaya tradition that followed, that was adopted in Mahayana and Theravada tradition. So later on, these two main traditions, Stavira tradition, which became known as Theravada tradition, and the Mahayanis are people who advocated a little bit more relaxation of the Vinaya vows. So it seems that early schools were largely divided on the basis of a different interpretation of the Vinaya code of ethics of monks. I don't think there seemed to be any actual philosophical argument in the finer details of the teachings of the impermanence or no self or prevalence of suffering or three fundamental, what do we call, seals of Dharma or four seals of Dharma. I don't think there seemed to be any great argument concerning them. But it's very important to see that those who have been advocate of the stricter monastic codes, and largely stemming from the Theravada tradition, you can see they have they are strict as they were then, as they are now, Even within Theravada, of course, you have Sri Lanka and Burma and Thailand and Cambodia, and to some degree also in Vietnam and so on. Those Theravadan traditions also have varying degrees of how they observe. Like they may be very strict, such as not eating after midday in all Theravadan tradition, but still some Theravadan tradition seem to think the monks can smoke, for instance. So you don't know what is the justification of that. So therefore, within those one school, you can see that there are different adoption of rules, and I suppose. So so Theravadan is not just one school. Theravadan also have number of schools within that tradition. The forest monk tradition, people think they are the one. Their way is the only monk who is alive. Those monks who live in city and have rich benefactors visiting here and there, live in very luxurious places, they think that's really not quite the Theravadan way. The genuine Theravadan way is the forest tradition, where you live in the forest with bare necessities and not so much contact with the rest of the world. So the actual ascetic tradition has always been like that. So therefore, it's very important to know that these Theravada traditions themselves have various different take on it. But it's an interesting thing is everybody honors the Buddha in the best as they can and adopt amazing rules, sometimes even to the discomfort of their corporal body, and they take those difficulties as a devotion to the Buddha and the teachings. And while others may live a little bit more comfortable life in city, but they give tirelessly for the benefit of others. Whatever hours people come and devotees request them to do this, they always go without any set or any expected pay or offering as such. In Buddhist tradition, it's the dana of the ordinary people, be that bare necessity of food and soap and some towels. Maybe that's usually people seem to over just the necessities, never cash or that expensive watches or expensive mobile phones. I don't think these things are appropriate offerings to the monks. They're not meant to even hold them. So there are quite a lot of admirable strict rules being kept in the Theravadan tradition. You can see their reasons of being very orthodox and being literal to the words of the Buddha, still have respectably kept quite strong tradition even as far as in 21st century. So therefore, it would be the Buddhist kind of insight to respect those traditions. However different they may be, but amazing. So maybe Theravadan tradition, though they are very strict, but their monastic tradition and vows seems to be very temporary. People are monastic for 2 months or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. During that, they live exactly as a monk, but with every intention to go back to their home or house or wife or whatever. So they sort of a kind of a small retreat. A lot of the Thai monks are temporary monks for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because it's like a national service. But some people may think, oh, that sounds very, very funny, and that doesn't seem like genuine. But it seems to change the very consciousness of every lay Thai man. And they all have amazing devotion to the Buddha Dharma like no other people. It's because these people have even 2 weeks, 3 weeks of opportunity to take robes and observe those strict rules, which they think is the proper way to be a monk, Because even if a person took the monk vow for life, but if he doesn't observe one day strict, then when does he observe in a whole year he still observes strict? No, I don't think so. They have to observe one day strict at a time. So the Theravadins, in many ways, are very, very practical, and not being too rigid. If people think they are orthodox, they're not rigid. They say you can take it for 2 months, and during that you stay as strict as a monk, and then after that, then you just give disrobe formally, and then you don't wear the robes, and you don't pretend you're a monk, and all of that. It seems really admirable. So therefore, it will be Buddhist insight to and causes of sanity to not only rejoice the temporary ordination, but those who have not only been temporary monk, but subsequently those people's attitude towards the Dharma and how they respect, how they support the Sangha is quite remarkable, really. You never have to make a big fundraising campaign in Thai. It just normally happens because it's all, you never have to ask people to pay this much fee for that. They never have such. Everybody comes in generously to support the Dharma. So it would be very important for non-Theravadins to not look at the Theravadin monastics or their ways or whether their intention is to reach nirvana. Who cares, as long as they if you think you are doing for the benefit of all sentient beings, Theravadin doing only for nirvana. That kind of prejudicial assertion by Mayan is more contemptuous than they're entitled to do that towards anyone. It's Buddhist. It's not Buddhist insight, let alone causes of sanity, to look down upon other Buddhist traditions at all. Likewise, we could say in the Mahayana tradition, they have a strong sense of feeling that they are the true followers of Buddha. They don't eat any meat, and they say, oh, others are strict, but they eat meat, so it very much defeats the first precepts of non-violence, and they eat animals and so on. But I think that can be the wrong kind of insane attitude of the Mahayanists. But the Mahayanists, their own, if you look at the admirable Buddhist insight and qualities among the Mahayanists, you can really see that they are surrounded by people who eat meat and all kinds of delicacies. But they are really faithfully observing that not eating any animal or meat or like that. And that is admirable Chinese Buddhist Mahayanist tradition. When we see them, I couldn't believe how much it talks to my heart. Because and for them, it's not just being a monk, not just being a kind of monastic. It's not just for a week or 10 days or full moon or new moon. Whole life, lay people, lay Buddhists, Chinese lay Buddhists are all strict vegetarians. The Chinese, Mahayanists, and Vietnamese Vietnamese also, and the Japanese, and a lot of China, all the Mayan in Korea as well. All those Mayanist Buddhist countries, their monastics may eat 3 meals. they may eat 3 meals a day, but they don't take a smallest piece of meat in the whole life. So if you look at that, there's something really amazing thing that they have honored the idea of non-violent and not taking any living being's life, at least for the consumption of oneself, So because of that, you can see, wow, that's an amazing observation, out of respect to the teaching of non-violence, not killing or causing any killing to other beings' life. The Mahayanists are very much on the pedestal to be revered and honored. And so it should be Buddhist insight to see the not eating meat and whole life. It's not just for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or once a month or 2 a month. Whereas the Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist is quite a different kettle of fish, whatever their excuses are of eating meat. And even if they give up on full moon, new moon, they think that's a great deal. As if the rest of the 28 days of the month, they can go and eat any animals as they like, as if they have some powerful mantras to recite because they can eat meat, or they can transform all such impure perception into pure perception or whatever. So the Vajrayanists have given themselves a license to do that. And now that is actually, and one way of looking at it is that while the Vajrayana is a part of Mahayana, the bodhicitta is central to the teaching of Mahayana, be it Mahayana or Vajrayana. Even Vajrayana, without bodhicitta, is just a kind of too many colorful things, and Buddhas and deities and mandalas. These things are really not, these things are just outer showcasing of the display of the symbolic practices of the Vajrayana. But actual central teachings of nonviolence should be understood. So that's why it is important that the Vajrayana is on one level, from the point of view of Theravada and Mahayana, has a lot more kind of outer conduct that Theravadins would see are questionable, because Vajrayanis don't seem to observe some of the basics, as well as the Mahayanis, who think the Vajrayanis think they can eat meat because they have mantra and they have prayers to transform them, and so on and so forth. So there is that kind of a prejudice can happen from others. Even it doesn't have to be inter-Buddhist schools that hold this view towards the meat-eating Buddhist. Even modern Buddhists, modern people who turn to Buddhism, whatever inspires them, they just assume all Buddhists are vegetarian and don't smoke and don't drink and so on, and so on. So some of the basic, very fundamental behaviors, the precepts of the fundamental Buddhist precepts themselves are quite varyingly interpreted by each of those different vehicles, for instance, different vehicle, whether it's Theravada Yana or Mahayana or Vajrayana. In the actual old Buddhist texts, there's no mention of Vajrayana. There's only talking about three yanas. Three yanas, then they refer to the Sravaka Yana, Pratyeka Yana, and the Mahayana, or sometimes called Bodhisattva Yana. So this the emphasis of the Sravaka Yana and Pratyeka Yana is mainly renunciation. And so that's why all the monastic code of conduct over which they think their way of practicing is more legitimate and authentic to the Dharma is based on their own rationale. Whatever the advocates of Vinaya systems they actually follow. You can see in the old Vinaya texts, you can see there is a certain versions of 4 parajikas, 4 fundamental defeats, and then there are a number of transgressions and so on that are renewable by doing a little bit of a periodical fortnightly confession called uposhada. There are strict rules, and if you really look at the Vinaya, that monastics who follow the Pratimoksha has to actually observe fortnightly communal confession together. However pure they have remained as a monastic, not transgressed any many major vows or even minor vows, they should still attend the communal confession each fortnight, for instance. Now, if any monastic community, even if there are more than 4 or 5 or 6 members in the community, if they don't observe this fortnightly communal confession, uposhada, then they actually are breaking the code of Sangha. They are basically not participating or contributing to be part of the Sangha. So that's interesting, isn't it? No matter how, some people think that Theravadins are individualists, the forest monks. Forest monks may be very, very ideal, renunciate, reclusively living in the forest, but unless they have special permission, they should still participate in the fortnightly uposhada to broken and restore the broken vows and purify the transgression they suffered, wherever they are. If they don't participate like that, then their vow becomes somewhat not registered. So, but nowadays, how many of and those solitary monks who live in some places in the suburbs actually observe them? They don't, they don't. Most people, Sangha members, are almost become very, very individualists. And they're hard to get on, to live with anybody, let alone 40 others or 200 others, 300 others. And they basically are individualists, and they don't have any commitment, neither to the community they respect to, nor to the younger ones they should to teach and guide, nor to the equals they should help and shoulder the responsibility. Quite a lot of people don't want to do nothing. And yet they have shaven head and their beard. Yeah, they have also shaven responsibilities. So when you look at that, Buddhism gives an impression to the people that these people don't want to do anything, want everything to be provided for them. They talk about what are they entitled to, but they don't want to do any of the lifting of the responsibilities. So one of the minimum lifting of responsibility, they should at least participate in communal confession. But people are not even wanting to do that. That's why if you look at the, when we went on pilgrimage a couple of years ago to India and visited Jitsuma Tenzin Palmo, the English nun, who is famous for her 3-year retreat, no, 12-year retreat, and starting a nunnery in India, but she refused to take Western students, let alone a nun, to under her direction. Why? Because they said these people will never listen. So never listen. They'll be a very competent, middle-aged women or men who they will never listen, follow the guidance or instructions of the teacher. So why would I want to take on them as my monastics? So she said she wouldn't do, but she can only afford to do that with the Ladakhis and Himalayan girls and Tibetan stock, because they have the tradition. Yes, if there is a question on YouTube, yes, please ask them on their behalf. Paul, thank you very much. Yes, there seem to be people able to ask question on behalf of the YouTube. So Paul, okay. you want to ask?
I'll just read it. I'll look it up now, Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Where's it gone? Oh, one moment. The question is just loading. My phone's going funny.
So this is what, just continue. If you have any question ready, please put your hands up, ask. Question is that, so in terms of people observing the Vinaya, you can see why that justifies why they split the Nikaya schools in 18 groups, because many individuals don't want to follow any rules. They don't want to follow the rules of the place, and they just want to be individualists. They want to have a place. They still want to have certain entitlement. That if there's little differences, they take it as a fundamental reason to hold ill will and break away and leave and resign. That kind of tradition, when you see in the modern world, you can see how difficult it may have been to keep the Sangha under one roof, following the amazing teachings of Buddha when he passed away. So the breaking of the Buddhist Nikaya school in 18 is no surprise. When you look at just as many egoistic individuals, there are that many rules that suits them, they will do that. If doesn't suit them, they don't want to do that. So we have that kind of situation. Pretty much shows why the justification of the many Nikaya schools, and to the later degree when we have Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana tradition. So if you look at within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we have 4, 5, 6, or 7 lineages, but these lineages are only succession of masters, but actual teaching and practices, they have no argument. They should not have any argument about bodhicitta, the refuge, 6 parameters, and view of emptiness, and practice of the devotion to the triple gem, and the need to confess your karma, believe in the law of karma, the existence of life in the future. They don't have any doctrinal argument to be a sect. There's no sects in Tibetan Buddhism. There are only lineage systems named after personages and some big centers of learning in Tibet. As a result of that, people have become a little bit more kind of a sidetracked by certain writings of teachers, prominent scholars, writer of their schools, and they become more like a very commentary centric of their teachers. But if you look at each of the Tibetan Buddhists, they don't have any fundamental differences that are worthy of getting even a name for a different school. So the schools are not doctrinal schools. Schools are not based on philosophical differences. They're only different Vajrayana lineages and teachings. All of them practice deity yoga, that emphasize the preliminaries, that emphasize the good foundation, that emphasize the need to have the good motivation, and not to mention the right view. So all of them have no argument in the central teachings, except they have different colors of hat, different kind of shapes of tormas, and different kind of way how they do things, each monastery, just like everyone has. So therefore, there is no actual schools or tradition as such in Tibetan Buddhism. It's very important to know that they all advocate that they are actually follower of the middle way. The middle way, Prasangika Madhyamika, they all say that, and some of them condescendingly tell the others, no, yours is not quite Prasangika Madhyamika, yours is Sautantrika, and that kind of a nitpicking philosophical argument exists. But this kind of debate that exists among the Tibetan Buddhists on the things only has one function of sharpening the rational and logical mind of the young novices. But for the actual grown-up monastics, they do not see any point in sectarian kind of a division or diversion by turning their back to the other lineages. The more the senior, the practitioner, the more respect they have of each other. And who doesn't have faults, who doesn't have karma, who doesn't have unfinished drags of many lives in their trailer. Everybody seem to have a long trailer full of things they're not quite able to get rid of. Every campsite, they instead of leaving more, they seem to pick up more, and so people have lots of. Until you reach the 10th state of Bodhisattva, you will still have this us and them mentality, and that is what makes it so difficult to reach full enlightenment, because they have this grasping to the self, and as much as there is self-grasping, there will be that much grasping to what they think is their schools, their lineages, their tradition. But that's when they are not well informed, they will think like that. But when you grow up as a Buddhist person who have heard the teachings, learning, studying with the one tradition, when you go to the other, they're saying slightly different things, but they're actually saying the same thing, really. So really, you don't see any differences whatsoever. They seem so insignificant and unnecessary diversion, but they all are promoting the same practice of non-violence and compassion. So therefore, what I'm saying here is that it is the Buddhist insight and causes of sanity to respect the other traditions and lineages, that we think there are other tradition lineages because they are in a different country, they are different ethnicity, they have a different language, maybe they chant in Pali, they chant in Korean, but you realize they're chanting in Korean, but they're chanting Heart Sutra. But these people are chanting in Chinese, but they're chanting Heart Sutra. And then Tibetans are chanting in Tibetan language, they're chanting Heart Sutra. And the Theravadins may be chanting in Pali, but they're chanting refuge. And amazing. And we are chanting in Tibetan refuge. So in the end, what are you talking about? No difference whatsoever. And that kind of theory has made somebody to say, Ekayana. Ekayana means there's only one vehicle. That is the Buddhayana. There's no, whether it's Theravada or Mahayana or Vajrayana, they are all Buddhayana. They are vehicle to achieve Buddhahood, they are vehicle to bring the inner awakening of our own heart and mind. If we have this kind of attitude, then we do not have any kind of sectarian views of others. Those people who have sectarian views are those who really know very little. They don't know the teaching. They're only talking about the colors and shapes and forms. They're still drinking all coffee in different cups. Some have long cups, some has a throwaway cup, some has just like a recyclable cup. Some has their favorite china. Others have this big mug they bought in Ankara. Others they have a pottery they've made with their own hand. People might be drinking in different vessels, but what they're drinking is same dharma. So it is very important Buddhist insight and sanity, causes of our sanity, to review each other with respect. Because I know some Buddhist group in Canberra, even the Theravadins don't seem to agree the actual architecture of the temple they wanted to build, because they say, oh, it should be like Thai, it should be like Thera, it should be like the Burmese, it should be like Sri Lankan. Oh, the Buddha shouldn't be that, it shouldn't be marble, it should be gold. Oh, people seem to be all caught into the form of things without realizing what they are trying to do together. And of course, when each other's population increased, then they all went away and they did their own temple thing. But they don't actually have a decently strong temple, because they all are very small groups. They can't really build a big temple because they didn't agree to build one that is universally appealing to everyone. So we need to adapt, adapt the Dharma according to the place and people, rather than always pushing on a supremacy of some lineages and then everybody should follow that. That kind of egoistic is not Buddhist sanity or Buddhist insight, really. In the end, all of form is emptiness, remember, let alone architecture of the temple. Let alone whether the Buddha has a tall kind of protuberance, or a little protuberance, or golden one, or just gold painted one. It's really not so important. That's just different traditions. It may be all the Buddha statues are actually clay and made out of mud. It just is fired differently and burned and maybe differently. But in the end, they all come from Mother Nature, whether it's a marble statue from Rajasthan, or a sandstone statue from Sydney, or a gold-plated statue from Kathmandu, or whatever they are. They say, Nagarjuna said, the Buddha image made out of clay should be revered, not because revered equally as the golden Buddhas, because not so much of the material, but what they represent. So all the Buddhist schools and traditions, when you see how they respect and honor and believe in the truth of the Dharma, it's Buddhist sanity to respect the other tradition and then don't call them as others. Some people say, oh, Lama, I'm moving such and such place. I'm so sad, I'm moving. I say, why? They say, we have no Sangha there. I say, what kind of Sangha? Sakya Sangha. I say, what are you talking about? Real Sangha is the Buddha Dharma. If there is a Buddhist group, you should go and join with them and offer your support, learn from them. You should not be so think that, oh, it should be my Sangha type of thing, And I usually say, whichever group follows any kind of Buddhism, you should go and join them. And it will be very good. You shouldn't feel that you are so alien and foreign and nobody will respect you and so on. So of course, sometimes we don't know the tradition. We feel not sure about whether you should go. You don't want to take your shoes off. And those people are always kneeling. You don't want to kneel. So you say, I don't want to go to that place because I can't be bothered kneeling down all the time. But slowly you can sit on a chair but still show your deep respect, and you don't have to kneel like everybody, because Thais are definitely always on the knees in the temples or in front of monks. So they seem to have a particular protocol and culture etiquette, but people will slowly learn by good examples, rather than feeling that, oh, I don't go to that temple because I don't know what they're chanting. But if you really know what they're chanting, they're good. So just sit in there and listen to the humming chant of very nasal chanting of Vietnamese, or very kind of a bilingual chanting of other languages, or every language got a particular sonority that you will see. But that's not important. The important is what it means. And often they have often they have English translations, and at least in text, if you don't hear them say. But if you don't know, but at least go there and feel the ambience of what those people practice and watch them do. That itself can move you to feel, oh, we are all following the Buddha Dharma. And whether they have so many statues that you don't know, or they have only one statue, or whatever, doesn't matter really. That's depending to the group and how culturally rich they are in terms of their kind of procurement. Some are relatively new. They have barely got much, not because they didn't want them. Wait until how all the temple or group will indicate how many statues they have. I tell you, the newer the group, they have few statues to choose with. Some only have those statues they buy for the gardens. They think the statue should be left in the garden. Even some supposedly Buddhist monks, when people give them statues, they don't know how to look after them. They didn't fill the statues with the mantras, let alone putting them high and offering them normally respect, or offering flowers and water regularly. They just live in the garage, the statues. So you can see that some people didn't learn properly, or they're lazy and they don't want to do it. They think it's cultural Buddhism. But who become cultural Buddhism? People who are acculturated. So if you're acculturated not to do anything, then you don't do nothing. But slowly, that's how you do. You slowly learn to look after your Buddha, because if you dust the Buddha, make the water offering regularly, and change them regularly, and clean your room, light the candles, do your meditation every morning, empty the bowls every evening. When you do that kind of ritual, it itself creates some kind of routine that makes you to believe that I am a disciple of the Buddha. I have this shrine in my room, and just being able to attend to them themselves very much transform our way of life, and therefore it acculturate our mind and our practice. So that's why it is important to important Buddhist insight to respect all Buddhist traditions and schools, however different they look. And according to His Holiness Dalai Lama, we should also do the same with other religions, other traditions, not because they are not Buddhist, because they are other faiths. They are, to them, the way they do, how they go in their synagogue or mosque or church. We should also do the same. We should, if you go in church, just act like Christians and go in there and sit in there. They wouldn't mind you coming in. They welcome you these days. And you just go in, you wouldn't believe how lovely it is to be with other people with different faith and soak in their goodness, their humility, their gentleness, their kind of confession, or their service, or whatever it is, So you don't judge anyone when you have, that's a sanity. That's a real Buddhist sanity. You don't judge anybody. and always look at what is good in there that you can learn from. So it doesn't have to be same Buddhist schools, but even others who follow different religions, that have a different sets of doctrines, and don't believe in reincarnation, and they believe in God, and still they believe that you should be kind to one's neighbor and forgive anyone's wrongdoing. Some of the just teachings are just as beautiful as Dharma is. So I don't think you need to see everything agreeing. You wouldn't have everything agreeing, even your blood brother. So even though you have many things agreement, there will be still a lot of different opinions on many things. So therefore, it is important. It is a Buddhist insight and sanity, or causes of sanity, to not feel spiritually alienated, thinking there's no Buddhist, no Sangha here, what I'm going to do. Go to the local church and synagogue, sit with them and do your little meditation and participate in their activities, and help the local church on op shops or whatever you do. They also are constantly serving. They really believe in serving others and serving the poor or sick or needy or depressed. Or you can see a lot of the church activities are Dharma in action. Its question is whether your attitude is there or not. So therefore, a lot of the church and their lot of social works are quite admirable Dharma bodhisattvic activities. People who open the soup kitchen and doing those things. I think Buddhists should have a lot of insight and humility to anonymously work with them and serve and help other fellow human beings and any living beings. And that's a real sanity, real sanity. You don't have to have armies of Buddhists around you wearing Dharma robes and wheel of Dharma on their heart and walking up and down with funny bags. And that's neither here nor that. That's not Buddhism. Real Buddhism is being able to be kind to any sentient beings and respecting the others for what they do, and make the Christians brothers and talk nice things about its teachings and practices. Don't get into the philosophical argument with them, and respect their views, and don't impose your views on them. And that's a real Buddhist sanity, because selfless. We have to be selfless. We have to be thankful and grateful to the others. And when you do that, then there is a lot of sense of saneness and joyfulness in one's ability to. You don't have to feel alien. You don't have to feel lonely because you don't have your Sangha in the town or next to it. You just go to any local community. They're doing good works. And you wouldn't believe how many of the volunteer in the fire, local fire department and local school canteen. When you go there, quite a lot of volunteer people do those wonderful charity work, dana, we could call dana. It doesn't have to be offering to monks all the time, or people you think they are holy or something like that. People who need you is more holy. People who need your help is more holy, wholesome than people who don't need those things, however holy they are. Well, the Buddha comes to a door, you can't offer him a wad of notes, for instance. He just wants some simple food. That's all. So the more you offer, it doesn't mean it's better. It's simple things that we do with the fellow sentient beings. Rather than thinking, I need my Sangha, I need the people of my lineage, I need to have this. And then when you don't, you feel a kind of lonely and things like that. So, of course, it is good to have people. Nowadays, we are not physically travel to every place anyway. But we are able to communicate and learn through each other, even through Zoom and through Facebook and through YouTube. We do not have to feel very lonely, even if how far away remote we are situated. So with this, I'm going to conclude here, everybody. It seems Paul's attempt to get the question has not been successful. That doesn't matter. So that doesn't matter, Paul. Thank you very much. So we're going to conclude here with the dedication of merits. Thank you for everyone joining us. And I'll do the short prayer to dedicate the merits. Erenda ayana jeje whatever meredaya vagru mehobe begas nalavas jehoda ayana jeje courage manju jenode azama Trabara de lava, following all the Zambu, Aja de Dege, all the Mede Hexalem, Bodi Jita, Treba, Veda Naya Daza, where has been Bomedang. Without generation. Thank you, everyone.